Hi, this is Rod Saunders from Jew and Greek. Well, as we've all seen in recent days, our standard approach to church and pandemics don't play well together. As you probably know, the government recommended no more than 250 people meet together for church. I never imagined that I would see Joel Osteen in his 16,000-seat auditorium preaching to a gathering of a couple hundred people, while the rest of his church tuned in online. Most churches have fewer than 250 people and weren't really affected. But now the government has said that we should have no more than 10 people per gathering. So now what? Well, let me introduce you to the concept of house church. You see, for the first 2 centuries of the church, the meetings were held in houses, not sanctuaries. The sanctuary model emerged in the late 3rd century when the pagan temples under Constantine were abandoned as Christianity spread, allowing the Christians to hold services there. God has worked through this model in the Western world, but in nations like China and Iran, where freedom of religion is limited, the house church model works much better. But now we can see the need for moving toward house church in the West, too. John Fenn, a graduate from my alma mater who worked for many years in a megachurch and other auditorium churches, was led by the Lord to begin a house church network back in 2001. Today, they're overseeing house churches in 52 nations. They communicate via the internet, but their services are led by a rotating group of hosts, and worship is usually led by one person on guitar or keyboard. They eat together, pray together, study together, worship together, and basically do life together as they evangelize and disciple others as the Word instructs us to. Their ministry is called Church Without Walls International, and their website is cwowi.org. I've been binge watching John's videos for months. He's an anointed teacher as well as a visionary for this hour. In this clip, you'll hear John discussing how the concept of his house church network began.
I spent 25 years in the auditorium church. Everything from a campus minister, an associate pastor, and senior pastor, to then what would be considered an elder and leader in a megachurch, which at that time had over 10,000 members. And I was the director of the Bible school that had about 700 people come through in a year. A lot of those part-time, the majority perhaps part-time, but about 700 bodies, in a given year. Passing through that school. So I had a big budget, got to meet some of the people that you see on TV and stuff like that. So I saw the good, the bad, and the ugly. So I'd been everything from small town country church to, a leader in Tulsa, the buckle of the Bible Belt, or what used to be, where, people of note have come from. But after I left there to travel on my own, and then I became... It took a position with a ministry that allowed me to travel all over North America, Canada, the U.S., and talk with leaders all over the world as well. I began searching, how are we doing church? There was a dissatisfaction that was growing when I was on staff because I saw people falling through the cracks. And this began to grow. And so finally, by early 2001, I was really seeking the Lord where He was moving. In February of '01, I was at Joshua Creek Church in Mississauga, Ontario, February 4th of 2001. And the Lord came, He appeared to me, my eyes were open to His realm, right out from the worship team, and walked over to me. And He said this, "See what I see. People running to and fro to this meeting and that, looking for the spectacular, thinking that is supernatural, while they miss the supernatural work in their midst, even in their own hearts, for the process of discipleship is supernatural." And then November 4th of 2001, just about a couple weeks after I said I'd be in the living room, I was up in Edmonton, Alberta, on a Sunday night service, and the Lord appeared again. And this was a church that ministered to the down and out, to the former convicts and prostitutes and drug addicts and such. And that's who populated the pews that night. And the Lord came walking over to me, and He said, "I love these kinds of people." It was His first comment. "I love these kinds of people." No facade, no pretense. He just loves the genuineness. They knew sin, and they knew they'd been redeemed. That night, the pastor next to me just fell flat on his face. 3 Bible school students we had with us afterwards said, John, Jesus was here. Did you see Him? He walked right past us. He smiled at us. We each saw Him. But for me, my strength left me to the point that I fell to my knees. And he came walking over to me and he said, "You've been doing the work of an apostle, but now I'm laying hands on you as an apostle for this task. I want you to start a house church and a house church network. And I want you to structure it in such a way to facilitate the development of house churches around the world." I asked him the name. He told me Church Without Walls International. And as we went on, I was a little bit, I don't want to say in disbelief, but I was earning a happy living and a good living what I was doing. And the idea of going to 10 people in a living room just wasn't appealing, you know. I knew automatically I'd probably have to get a job to build up this house church and house church network, and I'd have to work a regular job and then do that. You know, all these things were processing. But I said, why? Why do you want me to do this? And he said this: "It's against a time to come. Be a resource for them, for it's against a time to come." And that against a time to come means that it's a treasure, it's a storehouse against a time to come, for a future time. We're just touching on the beginnings of it right now as I'm recording this in the midst of the coronavirus, and people not being allowed to go out in public and not meeting in groups larger than 10 people.
There's a lot more to it than what you heard in that segment. I'm going to link to the video and his YouTube channel in the description. If you're tired of the superficial worship and lack of discipleship and fellowship that you see in the auditorium church, check out Church Without Walls International. Also, check out John's books, The Return of the First Church, Leaving the Church to Find God, and Pursuing the Seasons of God, along with other resources on their website. They'll be a blessing to you. I'm hoping to have John join me in a podcast soon, so be looking for that. Thanks for watching, and be blessed.